Hey everyone, we've got some scratches on the front of the BMW and I'm going to touch them in. We could have resprayed this area, but it's just a few sort of small areas where you can see the paint's been damaged, and so instead of spraying the whole area and potentially not getting it quite right, I'm just going to touch these in and then polish out any of the scratches that are left and see if we can help it to blend in so that you don't really notice it anymore. It's an old car. I've done this on newer cars, but yeah, it's a good way of putting it back to sort of fairly close to how it was without too much effort. I'm going to be using the correct paint type for this car. It's a standard Halfords mix. Obviously there are other places. I've cleaned it properly, thoroughly, dried it, very important, and now I'm going to shake this a lot, and then I'm going to start. So just a couple of minutes of shaking. Right, shaking complete. What I've got here is a very fine artist brush. You can buy these easily online in packs. I'm going to take my paint and spray some into the lid. So what I want to be able to do is use some wet paint to paint on. So here we go. So there we go. I now have some paint in there, just a small amount. I'm actually going to paint this very carefully into these locations. I'm going to do a very thin coat, like so. I can go very fine into the scratches if they're big enough to warrant it. There's another one there. It's a bit thick. Let's take some out of it. So wherever I can see the plastic beneath, I'm just touching in with a bit of silver paint there. Like so, and you can see these are kind of disappearing as I'm doing it. Some of them are a bit dented where it's really scraped it out. I'm not really bothered about that. This is about getting the colour right. So I'm just going to touch in all of these with the right colour. Then what I'll do, once I've got it all covered, probably go over it again, because I can see that this isn't absolutely covering. You can see the white plastic through this very thin layer that I'm putting on. And so I really do need it to cover properly. It's got to be thin so it dries and it doesn't blob, but then it's got to cover as well, so multiple coats rather than very thick ones. But the scratches, it actually, because it's quite thin, it runs down into the scratches quite nicely. And some of these scratches are quite serious, and they're not going to scratch, they're not going to polish out, but if I put a really thin coat of paint on them, polish will leave the paint in, the scratches will take it off everywhere else. So nice and thin. There we go. I'm going to carry on with this and then come back and I'll show you the next part that's polishing it out. The Halfords paint actually says to leave it for 2 weeks after painting before using rubbing compound. So I'm not going to rub over the bits where it was bare plastic, because this has only been done an hour ago or so. But what I will do is, I've got some rubbing compound. This is turtle wax, but there are others. You must make sure it's damp or wet when you use it. I've got a rag in here that's wet, and I'm just going to take some of this and I'm just going to rub it on this areas where I've got scratching, where it didn't go through the paint. I'm just going to try and take these out, just little circular motions, rub, just to see if I can remove some of the scratching. So you kind of got it's almost a 3-stage process with this. You've got the initial clean, which is really, really important. If you clean the affected area, you find that whole load of stuff that actually came off the thing you hit will come off the bumper. Then you've got a touch-in process, which you saw earlier with the new paint. And then what we have is this process with rubbing compound or car polish. We just get rid of the minor scratches around the area, just to try and blend what we're doing. Some of these scratches are quite deep, and it actually shows me where they're quite deep, where I could go back and put more paint in to fill them if I wanted to. I'm not going to use a body filler on this area. Nothing is bad enough for that. So this is just about polishing. Once the polish is on there and it's sort of drying off, you can then rub it away, and you can leave it to and then rub it when it's a bit drier, or you can just take it off with a dry cloth. And now as I take this off, there's a whole load of scratches that were there that are now disappearing, which is really nice to see. It's actually looking a whole lot better than it was. Hard to see this on the camera. I'm hoping that you're able to see this and that it's useful. But seeing it on the screen here reflected back is quite tricky. But yeah, there we go. So that's about the size of it. I mean, obviously when you can see this, it actually looks, from a distance, it's actually looking pretty good, whereas before it was all massive white scratches. So it's a really good way of turning what's really obvious into something that's much, much less obvious. It's not perfect. This isn't a body shop finish. This is just touching up and polishing out. It's a really worthwhile process if you've got an 18-year-old car with 123,000 miles on it, as I have, or indeed one that's maybe slightly better. But I hope that was useful. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you found it useful, and maybe you'll catch me on the next video. Have a great day. Thanks, guys.